Hi everybody, welcome to another Chit Chat with Magpi. My friends and I got together on my Discord server to talk about Part 5 Volume 3 in preparation for the newest light novel release. Let's just say that we had so much fun that I had to schedule a second session because we were not about to sit for 5 hours straight and talk about this book. A huge thank you to everyone on the screen for joining me, and also a special thanks to all these gifted individuals who helped me color the artwork for this video. Check out their links in the description below. Finally, just want to shout out my Ko-fi members as well as the beautiful donors on the screen who supported me in some of my earlier live streams. You are all the best. And keep an eye out on Twitter when I announce future read-alouds. And speaking of Twitter, a special shout out to Varunia, who follows me from Thailand. Thank you for participating in my latest giveaway. You're so wonderful and your support means everything to me, really. Let's get this started. It's the return of my love, my golden-eyed Adonis, my blue-haired champion, my rampant lion of Ehrenfest. Yes, Ferdinand is back, baby. Let's do this. Welcome everybody to Chit Chat.
Hi.
Hey.
Hi, thank you for hosting us.
Are you all ready to talk about Part 5, Volume 3 and the Christmas tree special?
Yes.
After yet another fever, Rosamind awakes to some shocking news. The sovereign knights captured for interrupting her dinner match might have been under the influence of Trug. The suspicion brings to mind a recent incident with Lady Georgine, but Rosamind decides to leave the matter to the adults. The Interduchy tournament is just around the corner, and the students of Ehrenfest need to prepare to socialize with other duchies and the royal family. As the end of the school term draws near, so too does a long-awaited reunion. Ferdinand is due to spend the rest of the night in the Interduchy tournament in Ehrenfest's tea party room, and as Rosamind struggles to keep her emotions under control, she makes an unwavering declaration: "I will do everything in my power to welcome him." Rosamind's book-driven rampage continues, and events happen back-to-back in the newest volume of this bibliofantasy. Let's get started with the prologue. The prologue is a Matthias point of view. Basically, Rosamind's retainers are gathering to discuss the aftermath of the bride stealing dinner. Matthias's concern basically is that he recognized the smell of Trug on the rogue sovereign knights that had been captured. However, as they all gather, it is very obvious that his concerns and the rest of Rosamind's attendants' concerns are totally different, and there's like a fundamental difference in their way of thinking. As far as Brunhilde is concerned, she just worries about Rosamind's health. Rosamind, we learn, is in very poor shape after having taken more than the recommended amount of recovery potions for the day. Let's remember that Rosamind had to fuel so many tools. She had to keep up the Schutzeria shield. She had to destroy a national treasure. She had to heal people. She had a lot to do. So no wonder she had to use those the recovery potions and abuse them. Brunhilde feels guilty that she failed her mistress and did not stop her from taking another potion. Now, here is where there's some discussion and debate. Because Matthias and Lawrence are of the point of view that retainers, they are meant to basically fulfill every single wish of their masters, obey without question and fulfill what their mistress wants. However, this results in mistress getting hurt. Whereas Brunhilde and the others, the way they work is that they do what's best for the mistress, not necessarily doing everything that she wants to do. And they put her safety and her health first and foremost.
I definitely see where they're both coming from. Since both Matthias and Lawrence were from the former Veronica faction, that's correct, right?
Mm-hmm.
If I remember correctly.
Yep.
Yeah. They've been taught that obedience is paramount when it comes to serving their charge. And as we've already seen, the way the former Veronica faction treated their retainers, especially when it comes to say Georgine and all of them, with name swearing being used to essentially lock them down and keep them from doing anything. I can see why they would see obedience as the highest priority, whereas Brunhild has seen Rosamind passed out multiple times already, and she's already realized that Rosamind has no self-control, so somebody has to do that for her.
Yeah, I agree with that statement a lot, that they really need to learn how to control Rosamind a little more, but...
There is such a thing as called the golden middle. They gotta cater to Rosamind's wants and needs, but also keep her safe, so I think they're both right in their own ways, and they gotta come to the middle ground.
A lot of Rosamind's impulses are relatively self-destructive in an absent-minded way. So she never sees the big picture. She only sees what's immediately in front of her.
Yeah, a lot of times when Rosamind goes on a rampage, it's fueled by emotion. Like the biggest one, for example, was when she rushed out to rescue her little sister Charlotte, and that one was the one that had the most impact on her life and on her future. And that's something that Brunhilde brought up. Like, you guys didn't experience this, but we have heard from her attendants how much she suffered as a result of this. And they basically decide we cannot allow history to repeat itself. Now, it's funny because in this same chapter, we're getting all of Rosamind's retainers acting the way they would never dare to act around their lady. Especially Brunhilde. Like, I just had to laugh so hard at the way she was ranting and raving. Like, really? This is Brunhilde? She's like the epitome of being disciplined and being in control. And no, really it was unprecedented.
Really well in the illustration that I colored. Sorry. I really like how expressive she looks when she yells.
I was surprised when I was reading it, because I was like, oh my gosh, I never expected her to be like this.
Right?
And because she's always so composed, and like we can clearly see like Rosamind does not see most of her attendants the way that they actually...
Right. At risk of actually going on our own tangent of talking about Wilfrid's sins, we're gonna talk about this a little bit, okay? There's gonna be opportunity to continue to bash on Wilfrid. I know you guys are hungry. You're sharpening your knives and...
Hell nah! I'm gonna defend Wilfrid. I like him.
I like Wilfrid. Well, in general, just the fact that he doesn't appreciate Rosamind. But, like, I'm also, like, he appreciates her, but, like, not in the way that she wants him to appreciate her.
Like we learned in the previous volumes, he doesn't fully grasp how valuable Rosamind really is, and he's just following order.
He's completely forgotten everything that's happened in the previous 4 volumes. She saved him at every step of the way, and he's still got in his head, and it's like that he deserves to be the Ob, that it's his birthright, and he can't do any wrong, and he's getting really bad advice from his retainers because they're thinking the way Matthias and Lorenz did of, you have to coddle and succumb to every whim of your patron, and that's where he's still thinking small potatoes, bottom of the rank, Ironfest kind of mentality.
So basically, Wilfrid is still cursed by his bad environment.
Also part of Sylvester's fault for saying him to become Ob from the start, because if he hadn't done that, then he wouldn't just assume that everything will be handed to him, and then he just have to fight for it.
At the beginning of the book, his biggest guilt is how oblivious he is. He's guilty of letting, for example, his attendants get away with many microaggressions that only retainers would notice. Also, he is guilty of, taking Rosamind for granted. During the dinner match, he was only concerned with Hannelor's safety. Remember how a funny line was how Brunhilde was like saying, he was only worried with Hannelor this, Lady Hannelor that. I could totally just hear it in my head. It was, Rosamind had totally collapsed, but Wilfrid was basically mostly concerned about dealing with the Archduke candidate from a greater duchy. And according to her, Wilfrid has never even thought to express his thanks or worry about Rosamind, who had put herself at risk to protect everyone in Ehrenfest on her own.
I think he's used to Rosamund collapsing, and he doesn't fully grasp how bad it actually is. And since Brunhilde is the one serving, she's more worried for Rosamind. Also, they did get into arranged marriage, so I can see Wilfried and Rosamind both not caring for each other. So I think it's not just Wilfried not caring much for Rosamind, it's also Rosamind not caring much for Wilfried, generally.
Yeah, and it's not like they don't care for each other, it's just they don't care romantically, or they're not like each other's person, and that makes a big difference.
Exactly.
I've noticed how much of a parallel there is between Ferdinand and Rosamind in this particular facet of their lives. For example, Wilfried's relationship with Rosamind is completely different compared to Ferdinand's relationship with his half brother, with Sylvester. Because back when Sylvester was a kid, about Wilfried's age, he met Ferdinand, and he noticed how competent he was. But Ferdinand was younger than Sylvester, so it forced Sylvester to work harder to make sure that he doesn't look inferior compared to Ferdinand, who is younger than him. There's a similar parallel with Rosamind and Wilfried. Wilfried they're technically the same age, but Rosamind is younger than him, and she's also more competent than he is. But he wasn't raised exactly the same as Sylvester was, and he doesn't have that competitive spirit. He has more of a I'm already destined to be off. There's no need to try any harder than I already am.
At one point, when everybody is saying oh, collapsing is normal for her, Matthias was also of the same thought, and even I have been, a little guilty of laughing off every time Rosamind collapses. There she goes again, another one bites the dust. But we learned through this short story that her passing out is actually really serious. Sometimes she can't even breathe properly. And this is something that Matthias and Lawrence have to learn.
Oh, I don't know exactly what it's called, but there's a specific word for when somebody experiences something so often that it stops affecting them completely.
Oh, desensitized?
Yes, desensitization.
I don't think that Mia has actually really described how serious the fainting episodes are. As it's always been this running gag that she just kind of collapses and passes out. It's never been really described as how serious it actually is.
Which is why it's interesting to get that information now. I remember one of the funniest times when she collapsed is when she was with Benno at the store, and they just tucked her away and continued talking because she always does that, and it was ha ha ha, it's a funny joke. She just fainted when she saw the letter types. That was hilarious, right?
Yeah, the side story with
that's right. With
Johann,
the Gutenbergs. Yes. Now, the biggest complaint that Rosamind's retainers have is the fact that Wilfried bemoans the interruption of the dinner as somehow having quote-unquote soiled their victory, and he mentioned how he was unsatisfied with the outcome, that is that Ehrenfest had won and Dunkelfeuer had lost. He complained in front of royalty when he should have been thanking the gods that they'd won at all. In fact, Leonor was so angry that her eyes changed color. And she scolds Lawrence, who was foolish enough to voice his dissent, for not understanding that protecting their mistress is far more important than the nature of one's victory.
I absolutely had to laugh when Matthias was internalizing, "You fool, shut up."
Yes, it was Lawrence who offered a response. "I mean, as a guard knight, I have to agree that our half-big victory was kind of..." And then Matthias interrupts, "Lawrence, you fool! Don't talk back to them! No, stop!" But alas, Matthias's internal screams did not reach his unfortunate friend. Lawrence was unable to even finish his thought before Leonor interrupted him with a calm smile. "Lawrence, it appears that you are not fit to be a guard knight."
How funny would it have been if Judith or somebody had decided to wash in Lawrence the way they did Roderick?
Yeah.
When it comes to protecting your charge, there's no such thing as a shameful way of defending your charge. The only thing that matters is keeping your charge safe. So that means that there's no such thing as a dirty tactic.
At the end, after all this ranting and raving about Wilfried's shortcomings, especially about the fact that he ignores everybody's advice and only listens to his retainers, Matthias tells him that he suspects that Trug was being used on the Sovereign Knights. Only those familiar with it would notice its smell, and this is a very serious claim, and they'll have to bring it up to their lady. All in all, I really like the dynamic between Rosamind's retainers here, and while there's a bit of a difference in how they view their duties, I hope that there's no potential problems in the future with the former Veronica kids getting along with the Lazy Gang kids. Next chapter, Awakening and Reports. So, Rosamind awakes. It's been a couple of days, I think, and attendants are hovering around her in worry. While she's in bed, Lizalita brings over a stuffed shoe mill and is able to record messages to Ferdinand. She includes reminders to not be harsh on Letizia, to eat well, to rest, all of those things that Ferdinand, of course, is going to completely ignore. Rosamind is lying in bed, sick, but she is far more concerned about her attendants and how worried they are. She just wants to put them at ease. She's not really wondering or thinking about her own health. In fact, she blames herself for what happened. She's never one to blame her attendants for the fact that she abused her potions. Now, it took 3 days for Rosamind to get out of bed and reconvene with everybody else. When she returns to her people downstairs in the common room, she learns that Hildebrandt was actually the one that got involved and who mentioned the bright-stealing 𝙏𝙠 to the Sovereign Knights Order. Of course, the Sovereign Knights Order, from what we learned, they said, no, we're not going to do nothing. But she also learns the very real danger that the royals could take her for themselves if Ehrenfest doesn't get their act together and defend her from other duchies who might be trying to take her. Finally, she learns the shocking news that the Sovereignty Knights might have been under the influence of Trug, and as they discuss it, she decides to pass on the information and let the adults handle it.
I agree with her thoughts. She already has enough on her plate, and that's not something she can deal with. That's something the adults have to deal with, because that's a serious accusation.
True. And they don't know enough about the drug either to actually bring it up to anybody. So it's very, very good idea for her to push it onto the adults. Preparing for the Inter-Duchy tournament. We're going to talk about the joint research. The Archduke candidate kids that are helping with the drone shell research, they have to brainstorm new ideas for other uses of the Ehrenfest paper because drone shell basically stole their idea and improved upon it. So Rosamind's scholars at that point, they actually shine. Feline is a lay noble, and she's of Rosamind's age, and Roderick is a man noble, also of Rosamind's age, yet they're already ahead of Wilfried and Charlotte's older retainers because they present ideas to make up for the fact that Drunshell stole their idea. As to Dunkelfelger, they will also present their findings separately. And while they're talking about the dedication ceremony and about the acquisition of blessings, they learn that Lurarati of Josbrenir obtained a divine protection after the dedication ritual. That's pretty awesome because it proves their theory that if you pray to a deity, it's pretty simple and pretty straightforward. Pray to the deity, do the dedication ritual, the deity will give you their protection. So Lurarati, she didn't pray for, Mestionora, she didn't pray for wisdom. No. She prayed for what was most important to her, the goddess of sprouts, because she wants to fall in love.
Yes, Bulanfa.
Bluanfa. I love Lurarati. I love how we get to continue to see her character throughout the rest of these books.
I remember reading, she doesn't want to fall in love, she wants to come across more love stories. That's different.
Okay. Thank you for correcting. Alright, she wants to find more love stories. They're also going to be using graphs to present the research results. As to the Arensbach joint research, Arensbach is going to present it, and basically Ehrenfest has nothing much to do since Rosamind did all the hard work of doing all the brewing. Raymond did the designs, Rosamind did the brewing. That counts as a joint research.
Rosamind revolutionizing the world yet again.
With the invention of the graph system. which we actually learned. It's just graphs that you would learn in elementary. So I'm guessing like a bar graph, or maybe a circle graph, or maybe a line graph. Nothing too fancy, but this is going to like shake their scholarly world.
So hard to imagine finding a pie chart being mind-boggling.
All right, so now they have to prepare for Ferdinand, because we learn that even though Ferdinand is living in Arensbach, he is going to be forced to spend the night in the Ehrenfest dorm. Why? Because his capricious and stupid, that girl, Detestlind, I shall call her Detestlind from now on because I detest her. And
I call her Deletelind because I want to delete her.
Deletelind. Oh my gosh, I love these. Yes, basically, she wants to have the experience of from the Royal Academy love stories, where her love interest goes to pick her up at her dorm and escorts her to her graduation ceremony. So she wants that whole romantic experience, and Ferdinand's like, whatever, I'm so over this, right? So yeah, he's going to end up staying the night at the dorm. The only problem is that he has attendant from Arensbach, so he won't be able to actually stay the night like within a room. He has to stay at the tea party room, which kind of sucks, because what kind of comfort can you have in like a common room, especially when they're saying that they're going to set out some benches for him to sleep in? Like, seriously, like, is this the best we can do in this society? Like, he's a noble and this is the best you can do? Benches? Come on! How can they expect his precious body to sleep well on a hard bench? No. Thank goodness for Rosamind, who made it her purpose to make everything as comfortable for him as possible. And Riarda is similarly motivated. Since she's been sick, she hasn't been able to read her letters or write letters, so she has to, give Ferdinand some news, but she also wants, to tell him things that will make her not be scolded. So she sticks to, quote unquote, harmless events that are already known. And honestly, her definition of harmless, she needs to check that, because she tells him bombshells. First, that she donated mana to the royal family during the royal dedication ritual. Second, that she can now use 2 stabs at once. And third, that she was involved with Dunkelfelger on a fight with her hand for marriage on the line. So, come on, Rosamind, like, what he's gonna do to you and to your poor cheeks when he learns the full extent of your troublemaking.
Oh gosh.
Raymond's research and Herscher's warning. And we have Herscher, who tells Rosamind that Ferdinand is actually very eager to spend the night in Ehrenfest dorm. She knows him very well. She's his sensei. She also warns Rosamind that all that has happened with the mana dedication ceremony, with teaming up with Dunkelfelger and all of that hullabaloo, has actually made other lower duchies be angry and jealous towards Rosamind and Ehrenfest, even if to her face they seem to be acting all nice and polite. Rosamind also is a very desirable prize who is seen as the one solely responsible for Ehrenfest's rise.
The Lisa later just appearance is always funny and great. I always enjoy those.
Yeah, smiling Lisalita seems so innocuous, but she has devastating power. Mm-hmm.
Very devastating.
Mm-hmm. Now we're gonna talk about Frau Alarm and Arensbach being just altogether awful. Herscher gives her some information about what's going on with not just Herscher, but also Raymond. In this case, it's Raymond, because Raymond is from Arensbach, so he has some intel about how Arensbach sees Rosamind. Basically, the Workenstock kids, they resent Ehrenfest and Rosamind for refusing to send mana that they so desperately need. Also, Frau Alarm is insisting that Ehrenfest didn't contribute to the research, and she wants Rosamind to only be a helper. And we learned that, Frau Alarm has a particular vendetta against Rosamind, because Frau Alarm's little sister was married to Count Bindewald.
I don't like Count Toad ever since I watched the anime, and then just the fact that she's related to him just makes it even worse. Why?
So, I don't know if they actually made a formal request to get mana from Ehrenfest, but basically it's just a matter of being jealous. They're jealous that Ehrenfest has an abundant supply of mana, and that they have a Rosamind who seems to be a nuclear power generator of mana, and they haven't seen fit to help them out. Why? Because remember, they are Team Georgine, and Georgine has no doubt fed all kinds of lies to anybody who will listen to her. So they're of the belief that she has been trying to get mana for them, and Ehrenfest has actually denied them. When in reality, she has never, as far as I know, she has never actually made such a request. Because if she were to make such a request, then Ehrenfest would have something to hold over her. So she has not done that. She has always just stolen and taken from Ehrenfest. But she can spin the story all that she wants with those Workenstock nobles.
Rosamind already helped Wizardstock without even knowing that, but Georgian lied about it.
Fraularm and Ehrensback are altogether awful. So, because Fraularm is insisting that Ehrenfest didn't contribute to the research, and that Rosamind should only be a helper, they countered this by putting the tool they worked on into a stuffed animal to emphasize Ehrenfest's role in the research.
Lawrence was the one who provided his voice, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Matthias was all like, I can't stand listening to this purple smut. Like, you should save those phrases to use for the one you love, kind of thing.
Oh, how sweet.
Like, and Rosamind did not expect that side of him, so it was like, huh.
To her, all those phrases just go over her head.
Because the phrases were like, "Oh, I'm Egg Wiggly, but I will cover the world with snow."
Oh boy!
And I will imprison Geduld.
Boy, oh boy! At the very end of those phrases, they record an advertisement for Ehrenfest books. The actual tagline is "Priceless stories at reasonable prices." Oh my, she is one smart cookie. We won't get to see the actual reaction to this until a little later, but for now, I think that's pretty genius.
That was quite the backhand to Arnsbach, honestly, because it was completely unexpected that they had the upper hand until the end there.
I just gotta say, I love the Ant comics a lot as an artist. I just look at it, it's so funny.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Fraularm had to be really angry at that one when she found out about it.
Oh my! Yeah, she even sent an ordinance, but we'll talk about that a little later. That way we can continue to be on the in chronological order. All right, so
yeah.
That was Raymond's research and Hersher's warning. Let's go into the next chapter, and it is the Interduchy Tournament. The Interduchy Tournament was quite a lot of chapters, but this is basically the first part, let's just say. So basically we have Rosamind double-checking the preparations for the tea party room for Ferdinand and his people. Riarda has, after all, been hard at work. Rosamind had his special bench brought in for him to sleep on, screens to partition the room and to act as bed curtains for privacy, table and chairs for eating, and Rosamind also learns that she'll get to have dinner with Ferdinand. Now in the morning, all the nobles are coming in, especially the parents, but also the lovebirds. We have Hartmut and Cornelius coming in for their respective fiancés, and surprisingly enough, we have Angelica arrive as well. She was there to evaluate Traugott as a potential marriage partner. Again, you know how Bonifacius is determined that Angelica marry into his house? Well, if she doesn't find Traugott acceptable, she'll end up marrying Bonifacius. I don't know, man. She actually just compares everybody to Bonifacius, and obviously everybody's gonna fail or fall short when compared to Bonifacius. But okay, Gambate, Traugott, your chances are slim, but okay.
I'm pretty sure Bonifacius is the strongest person in Ehrenfest, if we're talking pure combat prowess.
I think so too. Sylvester arrives looking tired, and of course he blames it on her. He also says that Florencia is not going to be there that day because she's feeling ill. So, because Florencia is not there, Rosamind ends up pairing with Sylvester. Will and Charlotte pair up together, and they receive their visitors to their duchy. Security is tight as they approach the arena, and the atmosphere is tense because of the recent conflicts and everything that's been happening with the Sovereignty Knights Order. And as they are settling in, who should approach them first but
Dun, dun, dun.
Dunkelfelger. And who is Dunkelfelger's representatives?
The wife and Hannah Lord.
Yep, the first wife and Hannelore. Ob Dunkelfelger wanted to sprint on over, but she held him back and she's like, nope, I'm handling this. So, yeah, we know who holds the reins in that marriage.
Yeah.
Socializing with Dunkelfelger. What could be so important? After all, it's not like anything happened with Dunkelfelger while the kids were at school, right? So, we have Sieglind of Dunkelfelger. She's the first wife. She's intense and scary, but a total boss. I love her so much. But she comes across as a bully at first, you know. She immediately starts swinging. Like, there's no niceties. She immediately starts. She insists that Hannelore has to move to Ehrenfest. That was the deal. You know, Ehrenfest won. And she once more says that Rosamind should be given to a greater duchy. Ehrenfest does not deserve Rosamind. Give her up, give her to us. Sylvester and Rosamind are forced to listen to her barbed words until Rosamind is finally fed up with this. And she goes nuts. Having secured the permission I needed, I made direct eye contact with Sieglind, making sure to maintain my elegant smile and posture. Lady Sieglind, are you perhaps unfamiliar with the terms under which our duchies play dither? On the contrary, I was told about them at length, she replied, her gaze sharpening in what must have been an attempt to silence me. Then why do you ignore the results of our sacred game? Lord Lestalot gave us his word that Ehrenfest would not be pressured into ending my engagement if we won. Then, casting aside all the ambiguity of noble speech, I smiled and said, You lost. Be silent as all losers should be. Sieglind merely stared at me as if my words were so direct that she wasn't able to process them.
Chills.
Oh my. Rosamind.
Somebody call an ambulance.
Man, Sylvester let go of the leash just a little bit, and man, the Schumel went off wild.
They're gonna need Hailschmert's healing for that one.
Oh yeah, the burn was, oh man, 3rd degree right there. It turns out, as they talk this all out, there's major misunderstandings at play here.
Essentially, Lestalot hid a lot of details. And also the way a contract is viewed in Dunkelfelger when it comes to dither versus Ehrenfest. Ehrenfest sees dither as essentially, fine, we'll play with you, but only so you stop bothering us. Whereas Dunkelfelger sees dither as a real contract, as a sacred thing.
Lestalot was just full. He knew what he was doing, but just full on hid it from everyone.
Remember that Wilfried and Lestalot hammered out the details, and Lestalot just wrote the details on some random piece of paper, Ehrenfest paper, and then he had Wilfried sign it. Wilfried, he signed it. He didn't even think that it was a contract because, as far as he was aware, all contracts are signed in parchment paper, right? And he signed a Ehrenfest paper. It was just for whatever official uses, internal uses in dither land. So, now, Sieglind is not aware of the reason why Hannelore was involved in dither in the first place. I mean, she doesn't know that Hannelore was dragged into it to make Lestalot call off the challenge. Sieglind is under the impression that Ehrenfest just wanted to get Hannelore, and for some stupid whatever reason, Ehrenfest was gonna make her a second wife rather than a first wife. So she was puzzled and angry that Ehrenfest was going to do that to her daughter. And, she knows the story of Ehrenfest and what happened with Gabrielle, so she foresaw history repeating itself. The second thing is Sieglind is not aware of the agreement that Ehrenfest made with Hannelore that they would not actually make Hannelore move to Ehrenfest if they won. Why? Because it was not reported to her. It was not in the contract. So that's where they messed up. Again, remember, who was writing the contract? It was Lestalot, who is a sly and very manipulative kind of guy. And he was just spinning everything to favor him. When Sieglind mentions that they signed the contract, Ehrenfest is like, wait, what contract? Again, they thought it was some kind of application form for playing dither. But only the Dunkelfelger people, they know about the practice of writing a pre-dither contract. The fault here, in conclusion, is that it lies on Hannelore for not making it clear, and for Lestalot for taking advantage of Ehrenfest's ignorance of their customs. In the contract, there was no mention that Dunkelfelger would cease their efforts to go after Rosamind if they lost. So the question is, did Wilfrid even read what he signed? At this point, we have to wonder, who's the one that messed up more? Lestalot for manipulating things and drafting a contract that left out several stipulations and misled his parents? Or is it Wilfrid for signing it without realizing what it was?
Both!
Yep, blame Oz.
Oh!
Did somebody blame Oswald?
Yeah, one through stupidity and the other one through manipulation.
You always look at what you sign first because you never know when it could come back and bite you after, which clearly Wilfrid did not learn that lesson to always read your contract or like anything you sign.
I think Wilfrid is the kind of person that needs to go through something before learning his lesson, so that's one of those things.
Unfortunately for
Well,
him,
Wilfrid and his retainers did read it, but like I said, blame Oswald. I have a suspicion that Oswald may have seen the deception, but decided not to point it out in hopes of getting rid of Rose.
Ooh, the plot thickens.
Oh, dude, I even never thought about it like that. That's a
quite
good
the
point.
accusation. Why don't you back it up with a source?
We don't need sources. We're just here sharing our views.
We all hate Oswald anyway.
Yeah. Let's just say headcanon. Oswald saw it and he was silent about it.
Yeah. Screw Oswald.
The only real proof I have is that there's references to various places where Oswald's very much paranoid that Rosamind is totally completely outshining Wilfrid, and goes to the point where he's going behind Wilfrid's back to Charlotte to tell her to let Wilfrid claim her results for various research. And
yeah, so let's continue to hate on Oswald. It's not just Lestalot, it's not just Wilfrid, though both of them really messed up here and they're both to blame. It's also Oswald because I say so.
Oswald's fault.
Yeah. But yeah, thanks for that, opening up that can of worms, Nuanil. Now we have something else to think about. Now, one other misunderstanding, the difference between bride-taking Ditter and bride-stealing Ditter. I forget if this is actually addressed here or in Siglin's story. But one bride-taking Ditter is with the bride's consent, and one is without her consent. Lestalot framed this Ditter as it being bride-taking, where Rosamind was willing to be taken. In fact, that it's a romantic thing. So that's how he frames it, and that's how he's also able to rally so much support. And finally, there's a misunderstanding that Rosamind takes after Ferdinand, and even though she's so frail, she just loves playing treasure-stealing Ditter. That is what Ralphin keeps saying, that is the understanding, that's what everybody in Dunkelfelger thinks, that she just loves Ditter. Talk about major important points that they had to address right there and then.
What is it with Dunkelfelger and always jumping to conclusions? Like his sheets, same problem.
True.
Yeah, they're very rash.
It's because they pray to the fire god too much. They're hot-blooded.
They're very impulsive. I feel like there are just a whole bunch of ADHD people, like just full on, like non-controllable.
Also thought Rosamind was born in summer and she's also impulsive, so she's kind of similar to Dunkelfelger's in a way.
In the end, Rosamind had to be super apologetic for how rude she'd been to Sieglind. She was so mortified about how rude she'd been. And so everyone apologized. Hannelore says that, she doesn't want to trouble Ehrenfest, so she will not marry into it. And they agree to not issue Ditter challenges again, bride stealing or otherwise. Finally, Dunkelfelger is to make it up to Ehrenfest by giving Mine Lestalot's art.
I kind of want to go back and mention an illustration for this chapter where Hannelore sits confidently and talks to her mom. I like the look on her face and how she's grown as a person. It really seems like she's growing as a person right there, and it's an important part of her life. And it just brings that out in the illustration. What do you think?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. During all the time that Sieglind was talking to them, Hannelore had shrunk within herself and she was just looking at the floor. But when it was time for her to make her point of view heard, to say, we've been troubling Ehrenfest a lot. I'm just not gonna get married to them. Marry into the duchy because it'll just trouble them more. That's when she stated her resolve, and Sieglind took that seriously because she's so used to her daughter just being so meek. Next, they talk about Fernestein, because everybody thinks that it is based on Rosamind. And Sylvester, rather than getting worried about it or taking the time to clear his name, that dummy, he still thinks it's a great joke. But Sieglind is serious. People might be whipped up into a frenzy to rescue Rosamind if they don't clear this up, in the same way that they tried to save Ferdinand, or they actually did end up quote-unquote saving Ferdinand. So that's a legit warning there, and Sylvester shouldn't be laughing. Should take that seriously.
I do wonder if it's another foreshadowing.
Probably. Everything here, everything's either payoff or foreshadowing for future payoff. Nothing goes to waste in this light novel series. Nothing.
For sure. I'm just thinking about the spoilers. Alright, I'm not gonna say them here. And I'm just thinking if that's gonna be related or not. And it just gets me so excited.
Yeah, probably they're related. So be excited and squee. Squee! Fangirl all you want, because it's gonna be good.
Sorry.
Do you feel better now?
Yes.
All right. Enough of this. Let's continue on. Do you think giving up his art is enough punishment for Lestalot, or should he have been more severely punished?
He gave up his masterpiece. As an artist, I very much sympathize with him. I like to hoard my own art, and if I like something, digitally I can share it, but if the original, I kind of want to keep it, and he has to give away his original art that he's drawn when he was inspired. I kind of feel bad for him.
I suspect he had a lot more larger punishments than just that, based on one of the short stories that that Vol does. What was happening in the dormitory when Hannelore sent the ordinance through the Rosamind, and hearing about how he'd gone all through the paper. So I'm assuming there had been more punishment went on behind the scenes that we just weren't.
The punishment had to be not just of significant monetary value, but of symbolic value as well. I'm of the same mind as A Little of Something. Maybe I'm not so much as an artist the way he is, or A Little of Something is either, but my creations don't do that. If I'm gonna destroy them, it'll be me who destroys them, or to give them away. Don't make that decision for me. Don't give away my artwork for me. It's mine. It's part of my soul. Many people might disagree and say that he should have been more severely punished, but I think that there was plenty of a punishment. After all, Sieglind says there is a piece in the dormitory that he put a tremendous amount of effort into, and I believe it will do nicely. He gambled Hannelore's hand in marriage without her approval, so he needs to learn how it feels to have a matter related to him be decided without his involvement. Ouch. Mama Dunkelfelder, she's a tough one. Don't mess with her. Socializing with Arensbach. So we had gotten a brief glimpse of Ferdinand in the earlier chapter, but at last my love has appeared. Oh, yes, for sure. He is here at last. In all his glory, Ferdinand arrives with Detestland. Oh, my goodness.
Oh, gosh.
So this is actually a really painful chapter. First of all, he comes with Detestland, who comes to interrupt their talk with Dunkelfelder. Not only does she interrupt their talk, but she essentially hugs all of Dunkelfelder and just ignores Ehrenfest. She ignores the Ob, she ignores Rosamind. Can she get any ruder? No, she can't. But, this gives Ferdinand the opportunity to approach Sylvester and Rosamind. And the first thing he does is to pinch her cheek and start to look, angry at her. Because he, of course, has been hearing all kinds of things. Rosamind looks at him and she notices that he is pale, sleep-deprived, and he looks incredibly angry underneath his noble's mask. So he's been, struggling with having to rein in Detland. Now, the first thing he does is he returns the cape. Oh, this part. So they summon 𝙏𝙖𝙣𝙠, and 𝙏𝙖𝙣 comes on over like so eagerly, like, you know. He's like so eager to greet and welcome and congratulate his friend and tell him that his marriage is all possible because of him.
You fool.
You just know, just why I am... So many
Honestly,
negative emotions. Can he just not be so oblivious and just have a mental capacity of a normal person?
honestly, it was really heartbreaking to read how the doppelganger finds out about what actually.
Tomcat said in the chat that this is top 5 savage Ferdinand moment, and I agree, because he returns the cape, and by his wording and what he says, 𝙏𝙖𝙣 finally understands that though he had meant well, he actually put his friend in the worst situation possible. What do you think was the message between the lines when Ferdinand returned the blue cape and said he could no longer wait for 𝙏𝙖𝙣 to win it off of him? What did he mean exactly? What do you guys think?
My interpretation of it was basically like, do not talk to me anymore. We're not friends anymore. You ruined my life, almost kind of things.
Yeah, we're no longer friends.
We are no longer friends. Take back your cape. I'm not playing Ditter ever again with you, you crazy Ditter maniac.
I see it as him accepting that, sort of very announcing that, you know, I'm probably going to die because of this. And it wasn't necessarily like this, you know, the end of anything we had, but, you know, you need to acknowledge what you've done.
Yeah, that's the darker of all the interpretations, I think.
Ferdinand was offended in terms of like he didn't expect his friend to do this to him. It's like, I'm very hurt by what you did, so here you go, here's your cape back. I'm not sure if he hates him or not, but I think he might be hurt.
It feels more like a disappointment than anything from Ferdinand.
That too, a disappointment, yeah.
I took the stress on Ditland's resembling Veronica as being stressed as being the linchpin of the interpretation here. Is like 𝙏𝙖𝙣 was apparently close enough to know what Veronica did, and by stressing that, he was stressing to 𝙏𝙖𝙣 that 𝙏𝙖𝙣 should know what he did and how Veronica tried to kill him countlessly and repeatedly, and how there's absolutely zero expectation for that to not be the case in Arzbach as it.
Yeah. And P. Fletch mentions in the chat that even if Ferdinand ever plays Ditter, he will no longer be representing Ehrenfest. And that's another point. I don't think there was anything that would even begin to tempt Ferdinand to play Ditter. Not if he's representing Arensbach now. He could care less about Arensbach, so he's not going to expend any effort to protect, defend Arensbach through Ditter.
It was a sad scene, and I'm glad like 𝙏𝙖𝙣 realized at the end, like, oh no, I did something bad. I actually hurt him and stuff like that. It's so sad. I don't like this scene.
And I like the fact that it actually also takes place in the presence of Sieglind. She also played a role in this, and she realizes just how much Ditterland has wronged Ehrenfest.
Yes.
They take tea with Sieglind and they talk about Dunkelfelger rituals, and the truth comes out that Rosamind was able to like do all these amazing things during the rituals, and that she was involved with these crazy blessings going on at the academy. And Ferdinand looks at her and it's like, you didn't say anything of this in your letters. And Hannelore, she's just trying to be helpful, but she only makes matters worse by like trying to like excuse Rosamind. Oh, Hannelore, you sweet, sweet thing, but you're not helping Rosamind here. And we also learned that Dunkelfelger so excited about the divine instruments that he even led a band of knights into the temple during the time of the dedication ritual so he could touch the divine instruments and learn to recreate them. Now, Ditland breaks in the conversation, interrupts their talk, and starts talking about their joint research work, which she's now fully taking credit for. And she brings up the talking shoe mill and demands that Rosamind give it to her. She is so obnoxious, so hateful, so awful. I was literally sick. And my heart just hurts so badly for Ferdinand, who's trying to keep her in check and failing. Like, Ferdinand has never once failed. What can't he do? Apparently, even 𝙏𝙏 is too much for him. Rosamind is forced to bend to her will, to give in to her ridiculous demands, and my poor Ferdinand has to apologize for it. Oh my gosh, I want to kill that girl! Sorry, everybody, I'm sorry. It's just Ferdinand's suffering, it just hurts me to my soul, everybody. He does not deserve this, okay? He does not.
He cannot handle the sheer stupidity of that.
He already can't stand fools. The fact that he has to marry one and clean up after her, it's the worst sort of punishment. I'm sure this is going to help him with his own character development, but I don't have to like the process, okay? I don't. I hate it. So let's move on to the bragging of the hairpins, because she brags that she has all these hairpins that she's gonna get ready and look forward to seeing them. But as they are talking about the hairpins, there's an ordinance that flies into their midst. Suddenly, this shrill, shrieking sound coming out of this bird, like angry, accusing Rosamind of deceiving 𝙏𝙏. I think any ordinance coming from Frolarm needs to have a headphone warning or a cover your ears warning or something like that, because it really was that bad.
My headcanon for Frolarm's voice, she sounds like female Skeletor. That's what she sounds
My headcanon is Madame Frau from Austin Power.
Yeah, so we have Miss Frolarm wreaking havoc, disbanding everybody because nobody can stand her voice. So 𝙏𝙏 and Ferdinand, they left because of these accusations. But when Rosamind tells him about the fact that she had recorded an advertisement for books, Ferdinand gives a little bit of a smile, gives her a pat on the head, and gives her a very good. Alright, we move on to socializing with royalty, who should appear but none other than Anastasius. Now, Sieglind wants to get out of there. You don't want to get involved with the royals if you can help it, but Anastasius says, nope, you stay, because I need to talk to both of you, Dunkelfelger and Ehrenfest. You are both guardians of these two. He uses a sound-blocking magic tool and orders Rosamind to make a shield of wind, because they need to talk really private stuff, and right now the royals can't really trust their guards. Once these measures are set in place, he airs his grievances about Rosamind and Hannelore causing conflict between the duchies. That is, every year that they've been at the Royal Academy, there's been some dither game or another. Rosamind flat out states that they are not to blame, it's the men of Dunkelfelger. Now, Rosamind makes everyone talk plainly, and of course, Sylvester is, suffering greatly because only Rosamind would talk in such equal terms with royalty. Rosamind has known Anastasia since like her first year, so she can get away with it, but it sounds awful how she talks. She doesn't follow the usual etiquette.
I have to mention the tense illustration. That illustration is pretty tense.
So after this conversation, they now have permission from the royal family to refuse any future dither games. Plus, Anastasius agrees to not automatically grant permission for dither playing every time Dunkelfelger submits a request. They talk about the Sovereign Knight's order and their involvement with the dither. Turns out that Hildebrand did mention wanting to save Rosamind from Dunkelfelger, but no decree was issued. And the central figures that were part of this plot were people that the king had trusted more than any other knights, and this raises a huge red flag. Because of this incident, those that they could rely on the most are now called into question. They tell Anastasius of Trug and how it has been used in the past. And for the first time ever, he brings up the fact that Georgine of Arensbach is a troublemaker and has, in the past brought about trouble for their duchy. So now she's going to be in their radar, hopefully. They talk about Ehrenfest's contributions. They've been, climbing the ranks. But Sylvester says, what, we can't afford to climb any higher. So rather than give us, a higher rank, just treat us equally to the duchies that helped you win the Civil War and we'll call it even. That sounds reasonable. There's another thing. There's a request from the royalty. They want to have Hannelore and Rosamind visit the Royal Academy's library every day during the Archduke Conference for the sole purpose of transcribing the ancient manuscripts that are there for the royal family to use. Now, there's an issue that's brought up because they're like, well, what are we going to do? Who's going to babysit her? Sylvester's like, you know what? Ehrenfest is struggling because you took away the Gremlin's keeper. But Anastasius is like, you know what? That's your problem. Ehrenfest, you have to struggle and deal with the loss of Ferdinand on your own. The royals, we learn, are prioritizing Arensbach, especially as it has the only open border gate. So it's the only duchy that can manage all of the international trade. So we're getting little by little introduced to the other countries that lie beyond the border gate. In this case, it is Lanzenab. He mentions that there's some fears that there could be some conflict with that country. And Rosamind immediately perks up and demands details. She wants to know. She wants to know if there's any issue that could put Ferdinand in any kind of risk. Because if something is going on, she will have to go and save him no matter what. And if any of these people are troubled by these assertions, well, they did call Rosamind Ewige Liebe and Ferdinand her Geduld during this chapter. So I don't know. Like, there's a lot of stuff going on here that I want to talk about, but I won't. Finally, he indirectly hints that might bring her knights over when she does the Starbind ceremony, and to have them wear blue robes just to make sure that she's safe, because we need to be reminded that the sovereignty right now is rife with uncertainty, especially when it comes to its differences with the Sovereignty Temple. That's going to be in a future book. How exciting. I wonder what's gonna happen. Nothing can happen, right?
This chapter seems to be full of foreshadowing. It's like all build up, where we're gonna see what happens in future volumes.
For sure.
Yes, it feels a lot like it was just foreshadowing. And like, I've had so many questions because of this chapter that I'm just mind blown, and I can't wait to get to the point where I'll get my questions answered by reading. Socializing with other duchies. First of all, we have Klassenburg. They want a repeat of the Royal Academy dedication ceremony. Rosamind shuts that down. They also want Ehrenfest water pump. Again, they shut that down. Other duchies, Drohenschel, Hauschlitzie, Glissenlemeyer. They're asking for slots to do business with Ehrenfest. They're again shut down. Slots are limited. Sylvester talking with Mine about the consequences of her actions and the consequences of the purge. So that's interesting stuff. And here is where we learn that Dunkelfelger used up all of their parchment because Lestalot wanted to do some art. We get the ordinance where we hear Siglin in the background scolding him for it. We also get results of the joint research with Drohenschel. Basically, both duchies did the same product, portable music players that relied on Ephron paper, but Ehrenfest used very little mana, and they are commended for keeping the best of their invention secrets. There's also a result of their joint research with Dunkelfelger. As expected, the graphs drew lots of attention. Feline ended up explaining the joint research, while Roderick ended up explaining the graphs to the scholars. Josbrinier wanted to socialize. Unfortunately, they don't get a chance because Ehrenfest is basically gobbled up by all of the top-ranking duchies. There's no hope for Josbrinier to make any trade deals or even try to approach Ehrenfest. So, poor Lurarati, so sad that she can't even buy a book. So she decides that she's just going to begin writing her own love stories. It's like a very familiar story, you know, if you're lacking something, you're just gonna have to make it yourself. In the same way that this bookworm wanted books, wanted paper, and she made it herself, Lurarati in the same spirit is going to have to make her own and be resourceful. Good on her. Next, moving on to Frembeltag. Because Sylvester is talking to his family, his own sister and his brother-in-law, he is able to break out the news that Florencia is pregnant. Who's cheering? Who dares to cheer? I dare you to cheer again, Noemi. Do it. Oh, there's a little of something. Fools. So cute.
Do you not realize how troublesome this is? Ordinarily, and normal people would be happy and overjoyed of the fact that there's going to be a new addition to this family. However, the other side of me, the more rational side, agrees with Constance. Sylvester needs to be smacked upside the head.
They don't have the mana to be able to have Florencia to not give her mana. And basically this is messing up the whole situation for Ehrenfest, and it's not going to be looking pretty.
It just increases the burden on the rest of the Archducal family. And yet Sylvester is still saying that he's not going to take a second wife. While they're talking, other duchies' kids are battling, doing speed dither. So Arensback is doing dither, and Herscher summons a Talfrost. We speculate that it's in revenge for last year's creature that Frolarm summoned for Ehrenfest, the Hunter de Long, which was a multiplying worm or snake or something like that. It was awful and annoying. So in the same way, she does like, here's have an Ehrenfest creature, a giant toad.
That splits into multiple toads, so you have to kill every single one of those toads, or else you will. So never kill that toad, and they multiply.
Yeah, it's the stuff of nightmares, honestly.
I do not want to see that in my life.
Yeah, it's a gift that keeps on giving.
Not a gift.
There are worse.
Yeah. Dither and Dunkelfelger's demonstrations. So Ehrenfest is their turn to do speed dither. And Gundolf summons Gumka. It's the rubber tree that is like a trombe, but can't be found anywhere near Ehrenfest. Mine seriously wants the rubber, and she wants any information about the tree. The Ehrenfest kids, led by Leonor, do extremely well. They even use up magic tools that were left over from their dither with Dunkelfelger. In the end, they are commended for their scholarship in recognizing the plant and how to defeat it, and also in how they're able to work together and follow the orders of their leader to accomplish their goal. Alas, not everything is good, because when they asked Angelica what she thought about Traugut's performance, well, she found him lacking. After all the dithers are done, the Dunkelfelger adults swoop into the arena and perform their ritual, led by Ob Dunkelfelger. And as they do their huge ritual, dance, whatever, they cause a pillar of light to appear as well as a blessing to rain down. This is going to go a long ways into, making rituals and temple and all these things more palatable to nobles who had, up till now, been yucked out by anything related to religion. So I think Rosamind has definitely achieved her goal that she had intended from the very beginning. Go, Rosamind!
Yeah. She has definitely accomplished her goal, and I like the fact that it's gonna help so much with the vision of the temple with everyone. It's so exciting.
My first award ceremony. Though she's come first in class every year for 3 years, it is only this year, her 3rd year, that she gets to attend an award ceremony. There is the Dither Award. Ehrenfest ranks highly, placing 3rd, just below Klassenberg and Dunkelfelger. For research, their joint research with Dunkelfelger was 1st, and the joint research with Arensback came in 3rd. She wants Will to represent the Dunkelfelger research, however, he refuses to take that honor and to steal her accomplishments. Detland, meanwhile, has absolutely no qualm to steal somebody else's accomplishments. We are basically left to assume that she bullied Raymond and she stole the limelight from him, going up to receive that award. Many of Rosamind's retainers received honors, including Brunhilde, for whom it is the very first time receiving an honor, and also Matthias, who made a great show of thanking Rosamind for rescuing him and making it possible for him to win that honor by saving his life. Meanwhile, Rosamind wins 1st in class overall, as well as 1st in class for Archduke candidate and scholar courses. She has her moment of triumph as everyone applauds her, including Ferdinand, Eckhart, and Justus over on Arensback.
Can we start the? Do we already have a mob for hating Detland?
No, there's not a mob for hating Detland, but we can suggest it. We can suggest it over on the other Discord. All right, so I think that Wilfried in this chapter never scored so many good points with readers than here when he refused to steal Rosamind's accomplishments. We know at heart he would never do something like that. We have here evidence of that, and we know that it's all his retainers, especially Oswald.
This is where I was going back before. He's a good being. He does the right things. He's just not doing the right things as and as a fiancé.
Yes, agreed.
He shares a lot of the same flaws as his father. A lot of them.
Wilfried doesn't have the same charisma as his father or the same absolute character.
That's the only thing he has going for him. Sylvester only has charisma going for him. He was not chosen for because he was strong. He was chosen because he was easy to manipulate.
Yet, like listening in the chat, Wilfried he's humble. In modern slang, the MF got no wrists. That's right. That's right, Jihyo. That's right. Now we're gonna have one of my favorite sections in the book. Dinner with Ferdinand. Welcome home, Ferdinand, I said. Ferdinand stared at me for a moment, surprised, and then gave a hesitant yes. That won't do. You should say something like, "It's good to be back." Proper greetings are important, are they not? "It is good to be back," he forced out, looking very reluctant all the while. I kind of feel like he was getting the feels right there and then.
He's not allowed to get the feels, though.
That's there, right there. That. See,
yes.
He's not allowed to display emotion.
This can't be healthy for him.
Survived.
Wilfried and Rosamind have dinner with Ferdinand, but Sylvester is there to greet him as well. Rosamind asks for praise before he scolds her, but Ferdinand only gives her a flick to the forehead and then says it without any enthusiasm. However, he does apologize for Detlin stealing the tool, and she's like, "Okay, fine, I'll just show you to your accommodation." So they arranged a section of the tea party room that has partitioned quarters with screens, places to put their things and magic tools, and then, to crown it all off, the bench that he'd ordered before. You guys remember from way back then in part 4?
That must have been a very nice thing for him. He would have felt something there.
Because remember, they were just gonna put some random benches in there, like, benches, this is the best you can do for Ferdinand? Seriously?
Yeah, no. Again, heaven and earth was being moved.
Imagine, like, she ordering it from the temple to the castle to the transportation room, then from the transportation room to the tea room, and then she offered to send it over to Aaron's-back. So that's pretty devoted.
I knew it. Even without reading, I knew.
Yeah, you knew. Rosamind can tell he's exhausted. Wilfried can't, though, and Ferdinand tells her that she doesn't look any better either, and does a checkup right there and then. Mind describes the experience as nostalgic, but when she opens her eyes after the checkup, she sees that Wilfried and Oswald are looking at them like strangely. Weird. I wonder what that's all about. We get a bit of insight from there. Anybody know exactly what Will was surprised about at this moment?
I think it's the closeness. I think it's like just how different she is with him compared to Wilfried. The treatment is stark, and if you pay attention, you can tell.
From the short stories, we learned that Wilfried is surprised that they act so differently around each other. Ferdinand is always so stone-faced that it was the first time Wilfried had seen his expression soften, and he'd never seen Rosamind so relaxed and vulnerable before. And you would think like, oh, well, this means that he's immediately gonna connect the dots and think, oh, like they like each other, and he would get all upset. No. It actually reminded him of the first time he'd seen Rosamind treat Cornelius as her brother. It also made him think of how Wilfried used to be around his own grandmother, relaxed and dependent. He didn't want to say it then because he believes that Ferdinand and Rosamind hates Veronica. So right now, Wilfried is pure-hearted. He has a pure heart. And
I said, he's a pure being.
He's a pure being, yes. As to Oswald, that snake thought that the public display of affection was too much for two people already engaged to others. And in a way, he put such a disgusting spin on it. But if you think about it, later on we get a side story where Lurarati and Muriela think of the same thing when they see those two interact. So it's not that Oswald is just being a snake. Well, he is being a snake, but there's a little bit of like, you have to be very careful in noble society, right? Oswald, he's a very poisonous person who has been brainwashed by Veronica. This is Liz Lepper says on the chat. Yep, I agree. So Veronica had a system that she used with all her retainers, and it's a very toxic system that doesn't allow other people to take credit. Everything has to go for Veronica. It's like basically your master or your mistress is a big black hole and everything goes to them. Because in the end, Oswald is loyal to Veronica, not to Wilfrid. Let's move on. They have food for Ferdinand and food for him to eat then. Food to take to Arensbach. Dinner is his favorite foods prepared by his own temple chefs. They talk, though they can't be as open as they were before since Ferdinand is now living in Arensbach. Ferdinand is to recompense or pay back Rosamind for the stuffed shoe mill that basically Ditlin stole from her. And actually, thanks to Lizelita, he is able to create the magic tool to pay her back right there and then. Not just that magic tool, but 4 at a time. And he does this by triple stacking magic circles, which is basically insane. Everybody is shocked except Wilfrid. He's just like, well, because he's so used to everybody being so OP. Like, he's like, whatever. Another day in the life of Ferdinand, or in my life, where everybody else is so OP.
And he's already seen that Rosamind can keep up with him, so he's not that surprised that Rosamind can do what he does.
That's what Wilfrid gets for being surrounded by talented people. Hey!
Yeah, that turns out to be a little bit of a problem, unfortunately. Liz says on the chat, Rosamind's retainers, they have to be the best in order to keep up with Rosamind. Yes, think like 10 steps ahead. What she might require, what she might want to do for Ferdinand. So she was ready. I don't even think Rosamind Rosamind never even thought to prepare some stuff for him to have fun brewing. No, she just anticipated it. So she not only knows Rosamind, she also knows Ferdinand too, and what he might enjoy doing, and he hasn't been able to do in Arensbach. So that was really thoughtful. After he did the brewing, it takes a lot of mana. It was quite a bit of mana that was expended during the brewing. And at the end, she's like, can I just heal you? And then he's like, yeah, sure, please heal. And then she, usually when you heal somebody, you use your ring and you go one at a time, like, may healing be granted, and the green light comes out and the person is healed. Then you go to the next one. She wanted to heal everybody, not just him. So she went and brought out her staff and brought out the full trained wand, or the staff, and then she did the mass healing.
Like the demigod she is.
Yeah.
Strike Holden I believe is the...
Yes, thank you. Strike Holden. Chat people. So Jihyo says the mana-ridden chaos gremlin that she is. She's the one that can do the healing, do all these things without a second thought. And also Liz says in the chat, but come on now, this is Rosamind we're talking about. Yes. She is the only person I think that he's ever seen use their divine instrument to heal people. Nobody uses divine instruments that casually. In fact, nobody produces them like magic tools that you can use for whatever. Now she's just like, let's heal some people here. Woo! Here's the magic staff. Will everybody be healed? They also talk about Detlind, and Rosamind warns Ferdinand that Teslind plans to outshine the royal family with her hairpins and dedication whirl, which almost earns them a long scolding. But as it is time for them to retire, they finish their recordings for the magic tools. Let's go on to farewells and coming of age ceremony. Rosamind is able to eat breakfast with Ferdinand. It's a pleasant surprise because that wasn't the plan originally, and so is asked to wake him up. Wilfrid, Charlotte, and Rosamind go downstairs to keep him company. Yes, I love this part. Like, a sleepy Ferdinand emerges because he stayed up late reading. But also, the bench was more comfortable to sleep on than he expected. And I'm just like, oh, Rosamind, thank you for doing this for my baby. I want to hug him and tell him it'll be okay. Don't worry.
Not gonna be okay. Until he comes home, it's not gonna be okay.
He has to return to Arensbach and stuff, but He knows that he has a friend in Rosamind, and Rosamind will always be looking out for him, right? Even after he gets married. They have breakfast, and then Ferdinand gives her the magic tool with recorded messages of admonishment. There's not a single word of praise there. He also gives her a leather bag with another magic tool that she's to use according to the written instructions. Finally, he thanks Rosamind and 𝙏𝙠 for preparing the room for him. And again, this is where we have my favorite, hands down, my favorite Ferdinand illustration.
I very much agree, and I think you did a really good job on coloring.
I'm going to read this whole paragraph because I love it. For him to be expressing his thanks like this, he really must have been comfortable. All of the thought 𝙏𝙠 and I had put into laying out the room had been recognized, and considering that I hadn't received any compliments last night, that made me doubly delighted. At the same time, however, my happiness was marred by sorrow. Ferdinand and I were going to have to say our farewells and separate once again. At times like this, a simple thank you will suffice, I said, being snarky in an attempt to push my sadness from my thoughts. I expected Ferdinand to respond with his usual sardonic smirk, but instead he gave me a kind smile, which I seldom ever saw from him. Thank you, Rosamind, 𝙏𝙠. Those were his last words to us before he vanished behind the screen. He had no more time to spare. Hearing him speak so sincerely was so rare that I wasn't the only one trying not to cry.
I feel like I'm gonna cry!
Right?
Oh god!
I know!
My heart skipped a bit on that part. I think it's my favorite part in the entire book.
Yeah, I love that part.
Him being super honest. I actually really like characters that are honest, and him just showing a glimpse of his true feelings is just like, oh.
I know!
This is not the first time he's done this, though.
Yes, but the fact that it happens after he's left home and after we already know how much he's had to suffer in Aaron's back, and the fact that this just means so much, even more than it did before. That he can recognize that there's people in his court. There's people back at home who still think of him, who still worry about his well-being. And this is the first time that he actually recognizes and actually thanks somebody. And he vanished into the other side of the partition because I think, again, emotion was getting to him. Okay, so now it's day for the graduation, and 𝙏𝙗 and other people are about to go and escort their people. 𝙏𝙗 got permission for his engagement despite being in the temple. This is, we learn, he reported. Cornelius is to escort Leonor, and Liselida introduces her fiancé, Thorsten, who is an adult scholar serving Will. Florencia also comes in, but she looks absolutely sick. She needs to rest after the transfer, but makes it in time for the grand appearance of the unveiling of the Jürgen Smith Christmas tree. When she... Yes. Yes, we get Detland appear in all her inglorious glory. She's a total spectacle. I have never felt more sorry for Ferdinand than I did in this scene. I know it's just a book, but the secondhand embarrassment was seriously real here. I was so embarrassed.
Why do you think Rosamind was trying to cover for his sense of style so gosh darn hard?
Yeah, and that's why she warned him. She warned him, like, this is what she has in plan. She did compromise and take out 2 pins. Rather than have the 5, she only wore 3. But in lieu of taking off those pins, she put in more decorations on her head. She wore as much decoration as possible, piled up her hair in an awe-inspiring mountain, which moved about like a swaggering lighthouse. She wore 3 of the 5 hairpins and ribbons, and she steals all of the attention. She whirls, and when she does so, she leaks a lot of mana. She leaks so much mana because she's trying to make her face stones shine. She puts in so much mana that she collapses. As she does, her tower of hair collapses, which is shameful. Shameful, shameful. But most importantly, she caused the magic circle that identifies as a Zent candidate to glow. Oh man. Now, here's a detail that I missed my first time I read. She fell face down, so I think that her face stone necklace had something to do with it. And whose mana did that face stone necklace have? I'm just saying that it could have glowed, this magic circle glowed, not just because she was giving off mana, but also because she was wearing Ferdinand's face stone necklace and it has his mana. So maybe that's what also made it glow.
Can you imagine what would happen if freaking Rosamind actually unleashed her mana? Sheet.
Oh.
My head canon is that she'd be able to fully activate that circle, but nobody wants that for her. She doesn't want that for her.
No, nobody.
Unfortunately, the gods are going to be like, no.
You're activating that circle.
Yeah, so...
we need a proper Zent. She just doesn't want it.
Would you? Like, seriously, now that we've seen what royalty entails, I don't think I've ever seen a book that makes being king or queen less appealing than in this series. Because you're just a mana battery.
Being a ruler,
honestly, that's
you are
the
a
least
civil
of Christ's
servant.
problem if she were a king.
Yes, of course, that's the very first. But that's basically what it amounts to. You're just a slave to the country. You're just pouring your mana continually and then dealing with everybody's crap. So just because the circle flickered on, that doesn't mean that she was approved to be a Zent. That just means that it failed to light on and properly be activated. It just happened that 𝙏𝙏 was the only one, or the very first one, who actually offered mana while they were doing the dedication ceremony. If any other royal would do the same thing, do the dedication whirl, and offer up their mana the way that she did, maybe they would have been able to activate the circle. And this is something that comes up in the next chapter, which I'm going to go into. This is the discussion with 𝙏𝙏. So, 𝙏𝙏, the future Zent candidate? What?
Oh no.
Royals want to know what's going on, so 𝙏𝙏...
He does not have the backing of the nation at all.
Well, hold on a second. The royals want to know what's going on, so 𝙏𝙏, Rosamind, and Ferdinand talk about what just happened. We learned that the Zent is willing to give up the throne if 𝙏𝙏's got the 𝙏𝙏, and we're like saying a collective, what the heck? Dude,
I mean,
have you even seen how inept and terrible this girl is? What?
𝙏𝙏 means everything.
Yes.
𝙏𝙏 means everything. Even if she's terrible, she has the one thing that is absolutely crucial.
But she hasn't gotten it yet. If she gets it, they will.
If she did. If she did.
If she did,
she would have been. Oh boy! If you think, oh boy, she would be watched like a hawk.
The problem is that you're willing to like do away with whatever current family is doing the things and just put this girl in the place. Like, have you seen how inept and terrible she is, Charcoal? And why would he do that if he sent Ferdinand to Arensback in the first place for those same suspicions?
It just shows his desperateness.
Apparently, Arensback becoming a Zent is better politically. Not only would they have more political support from other duchies, they would also have more manpower being a greater duchy. A neutral duchy having a Zent, like Ehrenfest, they would have a greater chance of civil war starting again if somebody wanted to take away his throne. So that's why they were more willing to back somebody from Arensback, even if they were idiots, than Ferdinand. Plus, they reasoned, with Ferdinand by her side to control her, they would feel much more at ease. Ferdinand advises the royal family to learn ancient language and read about the rituals in the underground archive, noting that Rosamind accomplished it within a season or two. He confirms that the circle does identify a suitable Zent candidate, but only someone with enough mana can activate it. 𝙏𝙏's circle only flickered, and it was only there for a few seconds. It was pure coincidence and only appeared because she had been pouring mana. Basically, he says if you, 𝙏𝙏, or the royal family do the same, you could probably activate it or whatever. 𝙏𝙏 wants Rosamind to assist them as they offer mana during the dedication ritual, but Ferdinand shuts that down and he refuses to get more involved in this and draw more negativity and suspicion, especially as he predicts Rosamind might also make it shine and it would only sow seeds of chaos.
But now they have a feeling that she can do it. And
And also that Ferdinand can do it, because Ferdinand is incredibly versed on all this lore. So we have to know, like, Ferdinand, just how much knowledge did you acquire when you were a student? How many things did you read in that underground library? What do you know, Ferdinand? Like, okay.
About as much as Rosamind learning.
Yeah, here.
Something smells foreshadowing.
Yeah, Jihyo says in the chat, something smells like foreshadowing. Right.
Smells like
I cannot confirm or deny anything, but yeah.
No,
Yeah, Ferdinand has read the entire Underground Archives, and he knows a lot.
Yeah, he knows a lot. Finally, Eglantine, she brings up Klassenberg's request again. Remember that Klassenberg wanted to redo the Royal Academy dedication ritual. And this is just a timely reminder that even though Rosamind sees Eglantine as a friend of sorts, this is a timely reminder that Eglantine is a politician and is using her friendship with Rosamind to not just get info, from about the 𝙏𝙝𝙖𝙣 and all the things, but also to get her to agree to do stuff for Klassenberg. Because at this point, Rosamind had totally shut that down, but here Rosamind agrees conditionally, rather than by saying that she would discuss it with Sylvester. For something for which Ferdinand tells her, like, what were you thinking? Like, are you truly witless? Those are his words. Rosamind has to be careful here, because Eglantine played her also. Lending books and a place for one's heart. Rosamind meets with her family to debrief, and Rosamind finally has some time to read. Also, the graduating students of duchies that did the dedication ritual are allowed another chance to obtain protections. Now, after this, Hannelore visits with not just one, but 2 books from Dunkelfelder and a tall pile of Lestilot's illustrations.
Yeah, all the illustrations were described as amazing. It was fun.
That is until she pulled up the biggest one, and it was a full color illustration of Rosamind whirling. And Rosamind's inner thoughts when she saw that were hilarious. She said, "This feels dangerous."
Not only that, but he made a flip book of sorts. If you move the pages quick enough, you could see her moving, like spinning. So he made a flip book of Rosamind dancing. That's adorable.
That is dedication.
And
Yes.
also concerning.
He did some basic animation, which I highly respect.
But remember, he's not in love with Rosamind.
He's not in love with her. He's not.
Totally not. Totally not.
Totally.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Totally.
Oh yeah, sure. It's not like he didn't go fight for her.
Yeah, it's not like he lied to his parents about her.
It's not that I like you or anything, but maybe I could win your hand in marriage. Maybe.
I get that every noble is emotionally constipated, but seriously, man, I don't know. Love is in the air, I suppose, or at least the subject is love. And Rosamind makes up a fake boy when Hannelore asks her if there was another man she considered more ideal or closer to her heart than Wilfrid. And what does she come up with?
So, someone that suspiciously sounds like Ferdinand.
But it's not Ferdinand, right? It can't be. Nobody would ever confuse Lutz with Ferdinand, right? Right?
Totally not.
Rosamind is no longer a shoe mill. She is now a dwarf who diggy holes.
Rosamind is so bad at describing that she's hit rock bottom and she's showing signs of digging.
I like her conclusion. She says at the end of the chapter, "Wow, I handled today perfectly, didn't I? Not a single mistake."
No, you didn't. No, she did not.
I honestly believed mine, but talking to you guys, I kind of understood what was going on and how she messed up. I honestly thought she didn't.
I swear Rosamind has mental horse blinders on.
We already know that this is going to bite her in the butt in the future. And, I mean, who else other than Lutz or Ferdinand does this describe?
No
Crazy?
wonder Muriela felt Bulanfa's descent.
Right? At this point, somebody really needs to tell her that people are seeing her, or people could see her and Ferdinand in a romantic light. Epilogue and the Martina point of view. My heart has wilted. My day is ruined.
I want to go on a tangent
I hate
myself.
this chapter. I hate it so bad. I wanted to just kill almost all of them.
The ending is gold, though. Ferdinand did such a cool move that I'm just in awe of him.
Yes! Ferdinand did amazing. He's amazing. No one can touch him. He's perfect in every single way.
Yes, thank you, Noemi. Thank you.
So anyway, we see how
Detlin treats all of her retainers.
Yeah, thanks for raining on our parade, Crazy. But yes, we not just see how Detlin treats her retainers, but also how the retainers treat and even think about Detlin and all that she does. They can't be brought to give a damn anymore. They dislike her, and Martina seems to be bitter about her life and how she has to serve Detlin. But she's happy to throw the burden of supporting Detlin and cleaning up after her messes to Ferdinand. When I was reading this book out loud, somebody mentioned that Martina was basically evil Thule because she also is cruel in the way that she thinks of Aurelia. Remember, Martina is Aurelia's sister, and she calls Aurelia useless for not being a proper spy for them and badmouths her so badly. In this chapter, we learn that everybody disregarded the report that Ferdinand gave from speaking with the royal family that Detlin had failed to activate the circle. We also got confirmation that Grausam survived and is now in Arensbach serving Georgine. Also, we learned that neither Detlin nor any of her archnoble attendants can sense Ferdinand, and they assume that he's on the lower end of archnobles. They just cannot fathom the fact that Ferdinand might have more mana than all of them. Finally, Georgine is enabling her daughter's stupidity and encourages her to look for the _𝙏𝙖𝙣 and gives her a year to do so.
Yeah, all of her retainers have to walk on eggshells around her because, they don't want her getting angry at them.
Yeah, and I think that's what makes them sympathetic rather than I felt bad for Martina and the other attendants that they have to deal with Detlinda, and they have to keep this inner rage within them in order not to yell at their own lady for being a stupid bitch.
They have all kinds of information they're keeping secret from her, like the fact that she's going to be a temporary op. She doesn't know that. Her retainers do, though.
Yeah.
So,
And they fear the moment that Georgine tells her.
Right. But then Georgine was very smart in using her possible Zenthood as what you do, when you want to give a dog medicine, cover it with peanut butter or something. That was excellent peanut butter for her.
Here's the thing about Detlin, so that I just wanted to send her up the towering stairs to the greater heights. With this chapter, she intends to force Ferdinand into the reviled temple and make him offer mana to Arensbach. Then, after exploiting him to the fullest, she would cancel their engagement at her convenience. It's an unbelievably self-serving and inhumane plan, but then, as her attendants say, so is Detlin. Detlin's retainers knew this well, so they didn't even make an effort to chastise her. Not only that, but she also intends that once she becomes Zent, she intends to steal Prince Sigiswald from Adolphine or Anastasius from Eglantine.
Wow, she's so vindictive.
Yes.
She's so detestable, which is why we named her Detestable Detlin, but anyway.
Yep,
Detlin.
Underneath Detlin's Zently delusions, she is angry that she is to be interim ob and that she has to move over for Letizia when she comes of age. It's worrying how she is intending to abuse others, including her own fiancé if she gets her own way. Now, Detlin has the audacity to just send an ordinance, order him to her as if he were her dog. He's busy working in the castle, but he goes there because she ordered him there. And then she has the audacity to ask for Ferdinand's name. However, on a glorious reversal, he says he doesn't have a name to give. And then when she's like, "How dare you? You're my fiance. How dare you give your name to somebody else?" And he's like, "Well, you know what? You're the second woman that asked for my name. The first one being your own grandmother." And it's amazing how he worded it and now everybody thinks that his name is in Ehrenfest, and that Detlin's grandmother has his name, and there's nothing anybody can do to get it back. We saw about the Interduchy tournament, and this is a Lurati point of view. I absolutely love this one so much. So in this one, Lurati basically, she just wants to marry into Ehrenfest. And also, she witnesses a quote-unquote tender moment between Rosamind and Ferdinand. This is when they received that ordinance from Frau Alarm complaining about Ehrenfest's duplicity and how Ferdinand patted her head and said very good to her when he learned that she had put an advertisement for Ehrenfest in the shoe mill. And they saw like how they are different, act differently around each other. Not only that, but Muriella, one of Rosamind's own retainers, also saw and came to the same conclusion. So it is delightful, absolutely delightful. Since Lady Elvira is not allowed to write stories on students still attending the Royal Academy, Lorelei will try writing it herself. And as a payment, she could ask to receive new books earlier than others in her duchy. She wouldn't have to wait for Ehrenfest to start trading with Drosbrenir. In the end, she frames the story as a tale of the goddess Mestionora. And here is a fun quote. It was mostly in fun that I compared Lady Rosamind to a goddess, but my words were truer than I realized. Around the time my manuscript was printed as a book, she would be widely accepted as a divine avatar of Mestionora.
It was so funny. Just the way that everyone interprets like Rosamind and Ferdinand's relationship is just hilarious to me. And also, like, the fact that she writes a book about Rosamind and Ferdinand's relationship is funny as it's amazing. And like the thing is that both of them are going to be too dense to realize it's about them.
Very seldom we get glimpses into the future. This has only been done once before, back when it said that future historians will note a particular date as the founding of the Gutenberg Group. All we are left to do is to think, what in the world is Rosamind going to do? And it's going to be pretty soon as well, because this is by the time the manuscript was printed as a book. So I don't know how long it would take to write a book and to sell it and to have it printed. I don't know, a year, 2 years, 3 years? Who knows? It's going to be relatively soon.
I completely forgot that since Lurati is writing about Rosamind, essentially, there's in-universe fan fiction of Rosamind.
Fanfic writers unite. Let's go on to Sieglin point of view. So Hannelore decides not to go to Ehrenfest, and this will mean that she will face a lot of backlash from Dunkelfelger. Right now, Lestelot is at fault for not having paid attention to his sister and being held responsible for losing the treasured shield. However, with Hannelore declaring that she won't marry into Ehrenfest after all, now everybody's gonna be like, then why did you sabotage the Ditter and leave the base? The nobles at home will see it as her stomping on Lestelot's romance before abandoning her own love and the value that it would have offered. They wouldn't be able to change the story and pretend that she had been dragged out of the base because, let's remember, there had been a magic recording tool at the time, so all evidence is right there. Sieglin says, as the first wife, I must protest your resolve and criticize you for what you have done. As your mother, however, I am terribly worried about your future. We can only hope that Hannelore grows from this and has a chance to redeem herself. Unfortunately, this chapter ended before the family lunch, when we were all expecting Sieglin to tear into Lestelot, and Ob Dunkelfelder too. But at least we get that audio snippet from earlier when we hear her say, "What do you mean you used it all on your art?" So, a fun note from the afterword, Miyakazuki says that while Sieglin can no longer control her son, she can still whip out her stab and bind him with light when the need arises. She is a proper Dunkelfelder woman.
Very respectable.
I love this.
I wonder if she had to do it this time.
I love this woman.
I'm not doubting it at all.
You know what I think? I think that when she said, "I'm gonna go and I'll take all your delightful pictures," he said like, no, and he started running up the stairs, and before he could get 1 foot in the stairs, she whipped out her staff and wrapped him in bands of light, then had the male retainers go and get the stuff for him while he was protesting. That's my headcanon. That's how it happened.
Best headcanon ever. That's now my headcanon too.
For sure.
I really respect and admire this woman. I really do. I want to be her when I grow up.
She's so cool.
And I know it's in there for Hannelore to be like that. I just know it. She can do it. She has the genes. All she has to do is...
find confidence.
Yeah, be more confident. Final chapter. Oswald tries to plant malice in Wilfrid's heart as regards Rosamind, but Will, being pure-hearted, as our friend Brandon said earlier, he rejects it wholeheartedly, though he's still a little hurt about some of the things that Oswald says. Oswald wants basically Rosamind to be demoted to Archnoble. He says that Rosamind and Ferdinand are inappropriate, and he accuses the 𝙏𝙏, saying that he was pressured into getting rid of most of Wilfrid's support base during the Purge. This causes a rift between Oswald and Wilfrid. The next day, they receive a really suspicious invitation to play Gewinem from Ordwin. Oswald tells Wilfrid, this is suspicious, like the timing is not right. You should reconsider going to this Gewinin. But Wilfrid is so upset with Oswald that he goes anyway, with the support of Bartold, who speaks up for Wilfrid. We don't know much about this Bartold, so let's keep an eye out on him for the next book. Now, Ortwin raises some questions about why Wilfrid wasn't told stuff and why Rosamind keeps excelling and going above and beyond to one-up him. He raises the possibility that Rosamind is scheming. But let's again keep in mind that his point of view is based entirely on how cutthroat the system is in Durunshell. But Wilfrid actually comes to consider it. He then comes to the realization that he has to compete with Ferdinand when it comes to the face stone he gives to Rosamind. It's sad because he felt like protected and he felt the love of his family member with this charm. But now he's like, I hate this charm. I want to throw it out. And I want Rosamind to throw hers out too.
My poor baby, no!
I do have some interesting thoughts. Overall, I think Ortwin and Oswald have a point, but their own point of view. I don't think neither of them understand how unique the situation is with Rosamind, that Wilfrid needs a completely different approach.
In the end, Will comes to the conclusion that Oswald was right all along and redirects his frustration toward Rosamind, basically regressing to that time so many years ago with the White Tower incident when he blamed everything on her. To thank his friend, he shares a bit of info. Ortwin smiles and then lets Wilfrid win. Wilfrid, of course, is going to be more likely to share more information in the future if, after this meeting, he ends up winning and feeling better about their exchange. So, Ortwin is a very sly and scheming young man.
I feel like Wilfrid is getting used like left and right by everyone and like doesn't know how to feel about anything, so he just bases his feelings off of his friends, his retainers. He needs to learn, but he's not learning.
Yeah. We had such hopes. Sadly, Wilfrid is easily manipulated.
I think he will learn.
I hope he learns.
I think it's gonna be too late, sadly.
There's so few people that would say anything good about Wilfrid at this point.
And this is where the retainers of Rosamind come in and say, he is not acting as an 𝙏𝙏 should act. And he's not. It's true. He's not cut out for it. In the 𝙏𝙏 match, he basically showed that he's not the pillar of Ironfest. It's Rosamind. He is a follower, not a leader. As much as he wants to lead, he's not. It really showed his character, and even now, he's a follower, not a leader. He's a people pleaser. He can't truly do that as an 𝙏𝙏.
The thing with Wilfrid is that he's so incompetent that his end goal is mediocrity. He has to be good enough to not be an embarrassment, and that's his end goal.
So the bar is really low for Wilfrid, honestly, yeah.
He was put in the situation where mediocrity is what's expected from him. He does have an inferiority complex, and maybe he doesn't feel like he can achieve great heights, and he just wants to be good enough.
And that brings us to the end of this volume. So now we have the comics. We miss seeing Ferdinand and Rosamind in action, and here we see their tender interactions. She's like a puppy, wanting affirmation. Meanwhile, Lorati and Muriella are shipping these two so hard. I could totally feel the giddiness of the two girls who share the same interests. I also really liked seeing Lawrence and Matthias's comic, and how, though they are good friends, they are very different. Matthias is shy and sensitive, while Lawrence is a confident and refreshing young man who has zero problem with recording all those embarrassing lines from the romance novels.
Yeah, such lewd quotes.
So lewd.
I like the postposition to the second comic, because Matthias went on his knee and he truly said what he felt to his lady, and he meant it from the heart, and he didn't want to record random lines, but he's up for saying something honestly and like to the person he actually cares about. And Rosamind just got so embarrassed misunderstanding the whole thing.
Yes. That is the book. I am so happy that we're able to chat and record together about it. Any final thoughts? We're gonna basically go around the circle and tell me what your favorite parts of this book were.
Just generally, the whole dinner with Ferdinand was like, I was amazed. I was having fun, especially because I was not, like, when you did the live stream and like you were reading it, I had not gotten to that part yet, and I was like crying up by myself in the bed, like finally having my Ferdinand moments back. I was so happy to finally have that back, and I love the Ferdinand moments and just having Ferdinand back with us for a little while. I missed it so much.
Yeah, me too, for sure. I love that part too.
I enjoyed the part where he's gets the spring-loaded bench, and how it's like an evolution of how his relationship with Rosamind, how he's becoming more and more comfortable.
Yeah. Critter over on the chat said, this is Liz Lepper from YouTube, said, I love how Ferdinand and Rosamind interacted. Right? All of those interactions are golden. They're like drops of precious water onto a desert floor. I needed that since the end of part 4. I really missed that. I am right there with you. Ferdinand and Rosamind interactions.
Starving for this. I was starved to death.
Same here.
I do have a few favorite points. The one that I mentioned earlier was where Ferdinand honestly said to Rosamind and Rihadra how he appreciates that they made him comfortable at night, prepared the room and everything. That's my favorite part. One of my favorite parts.
Yes, the part where Gatlin embarrassed herself. There we go.
Yeah, I agree. The chapter with the Christmas tree special was pretty funny.
The Christmas tree special was hilarious, and also just Siegland was fun to read about, and like I had fun with that.
Yes. Be silent as losers should be.
Oh yeah. Such a whoa.
That moment is just pure gold. It's hilarious.
I still feel like Detlin's gonna kill Ferdinand somehow. I don't know how. I don't know when. I just have a feeling.
I got spoiled about this part.
Okay, that's it. All right, everybody, stop.
I'm out. I gotta go. My ears.
Talk about it. I'm not.
No. We're not. We. You know what? Let's just stop here. Don't go, Honor Wolf. Oh, he left. He actually left. Oh my god. Let's stop with the spoiler talk.
I wasn't gonna spoil.
We're
not gonna spoil.
They have been bleeding.
No. Okay. All right, everybody. So this is part 5, volume 3. And we have a lot to look forward to in part 5, volume 4. So anybody have anything that they're looking forward to for the next volume?
I think Rosamind is gonna go back to the Royal Academy for the shenanigans in the library, and I am looking forward to it.
Oh yes, the shenanigans and the I'm looking forward to basically everything now because I'm avoiding internet for this. So
Okay. Yes. So I have bad news though for you all. We don't get Royal Academy in the Archduke Conference shenanigans until Part 5, Volume 5.
No.
Yeah. So the next volume is Rosamind and everybody returning to Ehrenfest to deal with the aftermath of the purge and everything that's been going on. So, just
purge.
With that in mind, anything you want to see in the next volume?
I want.
You can go ahead.
Brendan?
I want to see. Rosamind just become Zent and be just slap all these fools.
Yeah, unfortunately that's not till Part 5, Volume 6, so, I mean... He left! Oh my gosh! He left! Brandon left! Oh my gosh!
You really should have said that was sarcasm.
I was totally kidding. I was totally kidding. I am pinging him right now. Please don't go. I am so sorry. Oh, he's back. Brandon, I am so sorry. I was super kidding.
Okay. My ears are bandages. I feel like my ears have been violated.
No, I'm so sorry.
We must protect the light novel virgin ears.
I know, I'm sorry. Okay, enough then about Part 5, Volume 4. I will never ask about the next volume because it just causes this kind of trouble.
Because everybody on Prepub can't really say anything without,
Yeah,
and everybody who's not, it's kind of...
I know. So I know you can't say much either, Crazy. I also can't say much either, but I do look forward to the fact that once that Wilfrid returns home, he will be in a position to do something, or at least Florencia will be in a position to do something about Oswald. And I look forward to that. I hope they can do something about that menace.
I need him to die.
We need Oswald to climb the towering staircase.
Yes. Send him up on a trip to Northern Heights. To greater heights.
Can we go into the volumes and just go and kill him ourselves?
Yeah. Forget climbing the towering stairway. We need to stuff him into a cannon and launch him up there.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't want him to go peacefully.
Oh man, you guys are bloodthirsty. Okay, can you apply that same bloodthirstiness to Detestland?
Put her in a trash can and close it.
I think we should better stop here. I just want to say thank you to all of you who have supported me in one way or another at some point. I just feel the love and thank you so much. This wouldn't be as much fun if I were doing it all solo. It really means the world to me.
We love you too, Magpi. You do so much work for this amazing Bookworm community. It's great.
My pleasure. Thus ends the longest chit-chat I've ever recorded, at a whopping total of 5 hours spread over 2 days. To hear the longer talk with all the fun jokes, tangents, and wild theorizing, almost 2 hours worth of extra content, you can hop on over to my Ko-fi page and become a member so you can have access to not only the long version of this and other chit-chats, but you can also have access to my Discord. Thanks so much for watching, everybody. Until the next video, or the next read aloud, take care. Love you. Bye-bye.